One of the first questions someone's going to ask you is going to be like, well, how do I get jobs for demo? Like, what do you
Yep.
suggest? And it's funny because they're probably waiting on me to be like, yeah, go in marketing because I'm the
Yeah.
marketing. But marketing's only a piece of it. I think the relationships, the marketing helps you get the relationships that build it over time, in my opinion.
Yep.
But you can get those relationships even without marketing. So I think outside of marketing, if we kind of step away from what I do, I really wanted to have you on here to talk about the ways they could do it even without marketing. So for you
Yeah.
guys, what were some of the strategies and what are the strategies today to build those relationships?
Yeah. I think the easiest target, especially for someone starting out, we'll talk mostly about home remodeling companies
Okay.
because they're going to be that easier, most consistent, usually smaller jobs, but like they'll use you frequently.
Tell me a little bit about the effect it's had on the business for you guys. Obviously, early on, you were forced into it, right? You had to start. For you guys, how did that affect the business and its growth? Is it the biggest piece of the business's growth now? Is it part of it? Talk a little bit about that for someone, let's say, who's in junk removal, interested in demo. Maybe they're doing seven figures in junk removal. Maybe in junk removal, they're doing 500K a year, 300K a year.
Yeah.
They're looking to get the $1 million run rate. How can this help them do that? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say,
What's up, guys? Blake from Top Dog Digital today. I have a very special guest for you guys. For those of you who have some interest in demo, you're going to want to stick around because this is going to be a very good, a very important video for you. But I want to first introduce my guest, Nick from Junk Police. Nick, if you could, man, tell people a little bit about yourself.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. And yeah, so I'm Nick. You might have seen, some of our content and stuff, me and my partner Rich from TikTok, Facebook, and everything else over the years. Or, just chiming in on the Facebook groups. But we are a South Jersey, New Jersey junk removal and demolition company. I would say we do more demolition than the average junk removal company for sure. It makes up a large part of our business. And we've been in business for 9 years now, and we're, consistently going, and we're definitely still growing pretty quickly right at the moment. So
Yeah, and I've seen Nick around even before we connected over the past couple months here. I'd seen your stuff and just know I usually can pinpoint some of the larger junk removal companies at this point. I've been in the game for a little while, and he actually invited me into his group that he's building and took over recently, which I know you're probably still putting some work into that. We might highlight
yeah,
that today. But I coming into this year, we've learned a lot about demolition. Over the years,
yeah,
really, we've been involved with demolition, guys going from junk removal to demolition and seeing some really good things. Obviously, there's some risks involved, and we'll dive into some of that today too.
yeah,
But you are kind of a key component of that. One of the guys I've seen that's really made that transition and done it well. And I think probably still scratching the surface of what you guys can do. I'm sure you would agree, right? Continuously
yeah.
building, but you've got sort of a head start in it for guys who are looking to do this and looking for somebody to really connect with. And you've already had a ton of conversations. So I'll start off today by saying, when it comes to junk removal and demolition, what sort of caused that transition for you guys? What did that look like?
All right. So for us, it was a little bit different. And I guess before I get into this, just to clarify, so demolition is a pretty broad, scope. So a lot of the times in the junk removal community, you're thinking sheds, decks, maybe some concrete outside, something like that, which definitely is, it's light demo for sure. Then you have like your interior, more selective demo. That's a lot of the times going to be, kitchens, bathrooms, or in the commercial side, stripping out storefronts, things like that. And then, of course, you have larger like structural demolition. And then we can go in, it goes up to industrial and explosive, but I think we'll, draw the line at just structure there. So, yeah, so for us, it was a little different getting into it. We were kind of forced into it. I'll make a long story short, but I think many people know by now, New Jersey is one of the only states in the country that requires a pretty heavy like licensing process for junk removal. It takes about 2 years to get, costs a lot. So Rich and I starting out, we were only 18. We didn't know that. There wasn't all these groups back then to really get the information from. And within 3 months of starting our business, we got a fine from the state for $28,000. So not only that, we had to get the license, which took 2 years to get, and we weren't allowed to do junk removal. So we were all excited, started the company, and then couldn't do junk removal. So we're like, what are we going to do? So we had to pivot. We started a different company called Demo It, and basically just focused on interior demolition. And that was all we did for the first almost 3 years of our company was strictly interior demolition only. And surprisingly, we're able to actually build that up pretty well, and build a network of clients that I'm grateful for because they still all use us today. So that's something I've noticed with that type of demolition that's really been helpful. Is unlike junk removal, of course, there's great repeat clients in the junk removal space, but especially interior demo for GCs and home remodelers, it's a very sticky service. Unlike, we just don't really have too many junk removal clients that are the same type of repetitiveness that we do on the interior side. So that's how we got into it. Then, of course, we got our junk removal license. 5 years have passed or whatever. We've kind of just continued growing, and it's the last really 2 years that we've been really ramping it up to larger selective demos, larger guts, and more specifically like structural demolition. So a lot more houses, garages, mobile homes, and in-ground pool fill-ins, as well as like residential patio removals, concrete, things like that, as most of it. So,
Yeah, and you touched on something I want to kind of bring up. You talked about relationships for demolition, huge, right?
ah,
Like,
huge.
and don't get me wrong, you have that in truck removal too. Property managers, but it's not as consistent, I would say. Well, not consistent, but I would say because of the volume of demo, it makes it easier when you have that relationship to like kind of scale that out more.
A
Um,
hundred percent. Yeah.
yeah, and
Um, oh, go
I
ahead.
would
So,
Yeah, no, no, it's okay. It's okay. So I'll kind of lean into that, right? Because I think that's really
yeah.
important. Because one of the first questions someone's going to ask is going to be like, well, how do I get jobs for demo? Like, what do you
Yep.
suggest? And it's funny because they're probably waiting on me to be like, yeah, go in marketing, because I'm the
Yeah.
marketing. But marketing's only a piece of it. I think the marketing helps you get the relationships that build it over time, in my opinion.
Yep.
But you can get those relationships even without marketing. So I think outside of marketing, if we kind of step away from what I do, I really wanted to have you on here to talk about the ways they could do it even without marketing. So for you
Yeah.
guys, what were some of the strategies and what are the strategies today to build those relationships?
Yeah. So I think the easiest target, especially for someone starting out, we'll talk mostly about home remodeling companies
Okay.
because they're going to be that easier, most consistent, usually smaller jobs, but like they'll use you frequently. So, honestly, I'd say we have about maybe 20 to 25 clients, and out of them, maybe 15 to 18 that use us on like nearly every single job. So if they're doing a kitchen remodel, we're ripping it out. If they're doing a bathroom, we're ripping it out. Some of these are, doing 4 or 5, 6 bathrooms a month. So like very good clients for us. And out of those, I would say probably less than five came from paid ads or like advertising, which is actually more recently because we've been doing more paid advertising for that scope. But the moral of the story is the first like 15 pretty much all from walking in their offices and cold calling and just getting in front of them, maybe a little bit from networking and things like that. And believe it or not, a lot of remodelers, even though they're competitors, they know each other. So we've also been passed around just through the network. Once we gotten through to like a few of them, they tend to, people use the same subs and you're on job sites and you talk to a sub like an electrician that's there. Who else do you work for? So, and then you're able to build it up that way. So you can absolutely build that side. I would actually say it's required, more than just digital marketing to do it through just relationships in general. And one kind of, I guess, pro tip that we've been doing a lot recently is that sub trading. So there's a painter that we have and a couple other trades like electrician. And it's like we're all working for the same people, but sometimes we'll find out we work for the same 10, but then we each have a different 10. So we've done so many times where we've did cross introductions with like my painter, and he's introduced us to five remodeling companies. We introduced him to five, and it's like, boom, you're able to cross trade, and it's like that's the best way to do it for
Yeah,
sure.
that's super smart. Have you done anything with events?
Yeah,
Like events with, I would think like flippers, like those kind of events, stuff like that
we've done like a floor and decor opening event. We've done actually quite a few, and like networking on
Mhm.
the investor side.
Yeah,
Events are huge. Like for flippers, they have events like all the time. And that's absolutely an angle. I know someone personally that has really, really been doing well off of that angle.
Mhm.
Ourselves, we personally do more like selective higher end remodeling demo, so not as much like flipper high volume type of stuff. But of course, there's different ways to tackle it. It's kind of like two different ways to run it, but either side. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you get out there, you know who your target is. It's not like junk removal where everyone needs junk removed. Obviously, again, you have your realtors and like so and so, but you absolutely know, remodeling companies need demo, so you need to go directly to them.
Yeah, you can niche down in a sense, to really like you said,
Oh yeah,
specifically target, which I mean has some advantages too. I'd imagine you guys, even if you're not branding it, are probably so niche down in that category from what it sounds like, that word of mouth just spreads like you're the go-to guy for X,
oh
right?
yeah, definitely. Yep.
And once you have that, it's really hard for somebody to beat you when you can really categorize a niche. An example would be like outside of demo would be like if you were a hoarder specialist, you know what I mean, clean
Yeah,
house
exactly.
specialist. If you're
Yep.
known for that, niche down to that, people looking for that, like that's going to appeal to them. So,
Absolutely.
you guys, even without even probably realizing it in the beginning, have done that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so tell me a little bit about the effect it's had on the business for you guys. Obviously, early on, you were forced into it, right? You had to start, you
Yeah.
know, for you guys, how did that affect the business and its growth? Is it the biggest piece of the business's growth now? Is it part of it? Talk a little bit about that for someone, let's say, who's in junk removal, interested in demo. Maybe they're doing seven figures in junk removal. Maybe in junk removal, they're doing 500K a year, 300K a year.
Yeah.
They're looking to get the $1 million run rate. How can this help them do that? What does that look like?
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say the number one word to describe it would be like stability. So it's one of those things where like no matter what's going on in the winter or like leads or something happens with your, advertising, your leads get out of whack type of deal and you're struggling that way, it's just like our base. It's pretty much our core. It's something that we're always doing. We can always count on. And again, these relationships are like we're not even talking about price anymore at this point. It's like, hey Nick, I got another one. Can you be there this day? So it's just like gets booked on the calendar. Honestly, half of them now just email the date. They barely tell us what we're even doing, and we just show up and we send them the bill, and there's never a problem. So having that baseline and also, I guess, predictability, like knowing that that's going to be always kind of coming as our base, is probably the best thing I would say about the whole, demo side in terms of interior. And I have to mention too, which we'll get into it in a bit, but like this whole interior demo model is completely different than like the structural model and like a lot of the light demo stuff for homeowners that we can get into, which I do believe the marketing is actually powerful on that side, like much more so. So we can get into that. But in terms of that interior demo side of it, specifically B2B, that's what I would say. It's predictability, stability, and it is actually higher profitability in terms of like gross profit per job, at least for us. So
The irony that you're selling the marketing and I tried to get away from it. It's funny.
yeah, right.
I promise, guys, I didn't make him say that. Like, I
No,
just
he
you guys
didn't.
get the good info. So we could touch on that. I say this as we pivot to that. You mentioned winners, and I really like that click for me because when I think of junk removal, I think of winners struggling, harder to
Hmm.
get jobs right, less consistency. Are you guys seeing that same consistency in the winter, or do you ever see a drop off? Is there a time that you see a drop off? What does that look like? And we'll dive into the other structural stuff in the marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically, and we've obviously dove into the numbers. So we will see, like most people, December is usually pretty busy. It's more or less there's so many days that we can't work between snow and holidays.
Mhm.
And then January, February on the junk removal side, we will see like up to a 40% decrease. But for that interior demo side of things, it's honestly, I think the last time we looked, which was off of last year's numbers, was like a 12% drop compared to all the other quarters. So it's
Okay.
not very much. And honestly, I talked to a lot of our GC clients, and they like can't believe that we have a slow season, like junk removal in general. They're like, "What do you mean you're slow in the winter?" Because like these guys just book jobs like month in advance. Like they're just booked. They don't care what's going on. Like they might get delayed by snow and whatnot, but otherwise, they're like, "Why would I not work in the winter?" Well. because you're able to schedule it like that. For us in junk removal, when you usually start off each week with maybe only 1, 2, or 3 days booked, and it's in the winter and you just don't get the same call volume, it's very easy to go through days or even a week or so of like super low,
Oh yeah.
jobs and margins. So definitely has helped there, and it's definitely a significantly less painful that side of it in the winter than it is for junk removal for sure.
I would say, as we get closer to rat, we'll talk about this as well, the timing of it. But I would say for someone right now who's like they're probably busier right now. It's July, we're right in that spring, summer. So this is peak season for junk removal.
Yeah,
Dumpster
yeah, yeah,
rental. I don't want to not include dumpster rental too. You guys,
yeah,
if you're watching, same thing. So, but this could be a really good strategy for when you're prepping for the winter. All right, I know junk removal is going to die down. There's only so much that I can do about that. Maybe as you free up some time and you see that, this could be where you start to open up that area
yeah,
of business. And that could time out well for guys who are watching this and thinking, yeah, this sounds good, but right now my calendar's full. I want
yeah,
you to think ahead. I think a lot of times as businesses we get caught up in the now and not really thinking about the winter. I can tell you for my businesses, like I know what the winter's going to look like for us. I'm already prepared for the winter. I'm prepared for next spring already. I
yeah,
want you guys thinking the same way. So, we'll touch on kind of the timeline and some things that I think will line up with that. You mentioned marketing and some of the other demolitions you do. Talk a little bit about that. What you guys kind of dive into there, what's working for you, and how you kind of got there.
yeah, definitely. So with this, I'll probably focus more or less on like more or less what we've been doing more recently. So again, like I keep stressing this, how like different, how the term demo can be like so many different things, but
Yeah.
because this side of it, I would say, is almost the polar opposite of that whole entire interior demo business model. So that's stability, repetitive, relationship based. What we've been doing more recently, on top of that to compound it, is actually advertising right now, mostly with Google, experimenting with Facebook. Um, Demolition, direct to homeowners, more or less targeting, houses. For us, it's a lot of Jersey Shore type of things. People are constantly knocking down perfectly fine houses to build huge ones. So that's a big one. And then in-ground pool fill-ins, and then a lot of just like residential. It's a lot of concrete and patios and things like that. So these are the opposite in terms of it's going to be lower volume than junk removal by a lot. So you either got to expand your service radius a little bit. There's a lot of ways to still keep the volume a bit up, but it's going to be a lot less, and it's a lot more spotty in terms of, you might be no big project for a week or two of the month, and then you're knocking a house down, a mobile home, and doing a pool in the next 3 weeks, and you just collect 50 grand in revenue or whatever. That it's not as spread out or anything. So where one thing I've realized, and I'm obviously very happy about because I'm in the middle of going through this process, is I think honestly someone who's has a fairly established junk removal company, or like at least is have been doing it for a couple of years, adding demo versus someone just trying to start a demolition only business off the start, like more like structure demo, it's like such a huge advantage because you have the junk removal there as your volume, it keeps your guys busy, it brings in obviously money and everything. And it's like for us at least, when we do these couple, two, three bigger demo projects a month on top of that, it just like it almost like shocks our P&L. It's kind of unbelievable. It's the only time I've seen where we've scaled so aggressively and like margins have actually are increasing too, like on the bottom line. Usually it's quite the opposite when I've every time we've tried to aggressively scale, just junk removal. So I think having that kind of like advantage of a junk removal company where you feel like you don't really need to do that demo job. Like imagine if you just started out as a demo company. You're going to want every job you can. You're not going to want to sit for a week and not work type of thing. But when you have the junk removal constantly going, you're almost able to kind of use those demo jobs to fill in slow weeks is a big way to use it because you have like a permitting process a lot of the times. There's a lot more going on where you have a lot more control. It's not like no one's going to call you and say, hey, can you knock my house down tomorrow? But like, that's not how it goes with this.
Yeah.
So we found it's very nice, and it also allows us to be like purposely more selective about the jobs that we want to do and take and price them at a premium. So like, I'm okay with having a lower close rate and getting higher paying jobs because we're already doing what we're doing, and this is to me like supplemental, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a competitive advantage in that there's less desperation
Exactly.
for the jobs. And I agree with you. I've seen demolition firsthand now for about 3 years, maybe 4 years. If you're coming into this and you're looking at it as a volume play, it's not going to be volume. It's going to be quality over quantity
Mm-hmm.
with this. You're not going to get 3 calls a day on these,
Yeah.
on these projects, but the projects that are coming in are well surpassed what you're looking at, Junker. I mean, even clean outs, guys. I mean, we're talking, good clean out, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 hours, maybe some of these other jobs, 50,000, 100,000. We just, and I'm not saying this is the norm, so please don't take that for that. But if you want to talk about high end, I mean, we just seen one with a hotel, 700,000.
Yeah.
There's guys who aren't doing that in a year. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that that means you're going to get those calls if you're running Google Ads or Facebook ads. So I want to be very transparent. What I'm saying is I mean, it could go that far, in
Oh
some of
yeah.
these projects. You start getting commercial even higher. So it's a strategic way to scale if you have everything that you need with it. And the marketing returns can be pretty drastic in comparison to junk removal. Junk
Yep.
removal is just to get a 20x return on marketing
Not
is
happening.
not very reasonable. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just being honest with you. In
Yep.
demo, that's very reasonable. You could easily
Absolutely.
do that and then some because of that. But I know we've talked about all the positives. I do want to weigh into some of the negatives. I think that's a good thing to do. I hate shiny object stuff where it's like, look,
Yeah.
this one thing is going to make you a billionaire. There's no such thing as that. There's always a positive and a negative. So let's touch on the negatives. What are some things in demo that you're like, here's something that's risky, here's something you should look out for. And as we transition out of that, you're a great resource to prepare them for the good and the bad. And we'll talk about what you're putting together, and why I believe you're a great resource with this. But kind of go into some of the negatives or things for them to protect themselves from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is a huge one because, in my opinion, from a number standpoint, I honestly believe it is unlike anything like recently that we've done over the years. I just see it as very, very helpful from just a money standpoint. Now, operationally, completely different, story.
Mhm.
So junk removal, obviously much more simple. And then the demo side, I kind of will try to touch on both sides. So like kind of quickly on the interior demo side, it's more about just knowing what you're actually doing. So you're not going to be able to just send, you know, two of your junk removal team members or go out yourself and have never done it and just, take a full kitchen out completely without having any problems because you're going to be like dealing with electric, there's gas lines involved a lot of the times, and you need to know, to shut them off, and water, obviously. Having the right tools in case something does happen or to prevent anything from happening. Like, for example, if you hit a water line and you don't have like a shark bite cap on hand, which you should always, you're going to have a problem, and, versus someone who's done it. So, taking a lot of time to actually learn about that. I mean, obviously, starting with the easy stuff, like I'm sure a lot of guys watching this have already done something along the lines of like kitchen cabinet removal or like maybe just flooring, tile, or anything. But to do like a full scope demo, you definitely just need to put the time in and kind of slowly learn what you're doing on that end, which I do find it's a little easier to try to do that maybe on your one-off jobs like for homeowners and stuff to really get the experience and stuff before so you don't blow your shot with a GC or something. So that's that side of it. It's definitely a completely different thing in that sense. It's honestly a trade. It is a trade, like especially on the commercial side. All the jobs start with demo. They get their own plans, own blueprints. It's its own trade. So definitely understanding that is huge on that side. And then, well, this is more or less what I've been doing recently. So just to give you a little background, we've pretty much gotten to the point in terms of like, ops manager, we have admin help, things like that, that the junk removal side is very little involvement. And really, this last year, I made the decision to pretty much jump back in, like boots on the ground, in terms of only focusing on demo and just trying to master the whole process. So from permitting to getting our few operators and team members that have been helping produce it, like speeding up the process of how to do jobs in terms of logistics with, dumpsters and dirt deliveries and equipment rentals and like things like that. So there is a ton that goes into it. So it's definitely not easy. Looking at the revenue and the P&L and everything definitely is appealing, but when you look at what goes into it, I've probably been working harder this year than I have in the last two or three, just for making the decision of we're going to do this and we're going to, make this work type of thing. So be prepared to do that. Try to do as much due diligence as possible. And unfortunately, I wish I could say like, watch a bunch of YouTube videos like there is on junk removal, but it's I've found there's not that much out there,
Not as
which
many.
is kind of why I've been, trying to look for a way to help people because I genuinely had to do it step by step myself. So, yeah, I think that's the most of it is just understanding that it's not going to be easy in any way to start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll add in from what I've seen too, and I'm sure you've seen it. We talked about it before hopping on here live. Some of the money aspects too. There's a lot of money in it, but if you start being behind on collections or something, that could be a challenging part of that as well, right? If
Yeah.
somebody owes you 200,000 for a demo and you put
Yep.
40,000 into that project and now you're 40,000 in the hole or, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
And those are random
I'll,
numbers, guys. I'm not using that as an experience, but
no, no.
that
I
could be a risk.
no, absolutely. I'm going to give you a complete live example. It's about as live as it could get because I was on the phone with this client 1 minute before I hopped in the Zoom meeting.
Okay, there you go.
So this is a very large job. Would be potentially our largest from the demolition campaign. It's a 143 unit apartments that need to get selectively demoed. We've
Mhm.
actually done one similar, like a 300 unit job, but the scope was very small on that. It was like just kitchen cabinets on that one. This one's flooring, some walls, cabinets, whatever. So we're talking it's like a over $300,000 job, just to get a perspective on
Mhm.
what it is. So obviously, that to us would be like amazing. We would love it. We were looking at the reviews of the company that we offered the bid to, general contractor, and he has quite a few reviews on there from other trades and contractors saying, do not work with this company. They didn't pay me. So, most likely close to a deal breaker type of deal, possibly, but we'll have to see because, I mean, you never actually know. And the company has been around a while, so I don't know if it was just a couple random, you know, contractors who didn't understand payment terms or something that decided to do that. So we have to see, but that's something to like think about on a massive scale for us. Like
Yeah,
obviously the job would be great. We'd love to do it. So with that, normally a job that I would price pretty aggressively because like logistically it's a really good job for us because it's just high volume units. It's like super straightforward. We ended up having to like really tighten up the payment terms on our proposal, like a lot, like higher mobilization fee. We needed to be able to bill on like a weekly basis or like per unit and tighten it up a lot more to like where our chances of getting the job would be a lot lower. But we had to do that in order just because of that situation. Because like
yeah,
it all sounds great and all to do a multi six figure job until you're, have 10 guys there for a month and you haven't seen any money and you don't know if it's coming, then it's like better to not do it. So that's just
yeah,
a good example of things to watch out for. And, had I just got into it randomly, I would have probably just only seen the numbers and not done any due diligence or anything. But just working with commercial GCs in the past and like, talking to people, I know actually, I don't want to say it's common in the industry, but it happens.
that
So
happens.
definitely need to watch out. And then on top of that, that's like more, I don't want to scare anybody, but there's that side. And then other than that, just understanding like normal commercial billing is definitely a big part of it. Because typically on these demos, even for residential GCs, you're not going in there and walking out with a check or a payment like you do with junk removal. You're
Yeah,
at least in like a net 15 type of billing, net 30, and then you get in
30.
commercial, you're talking net 30, 60, 90.
Yeah,
And that's just like almost industry standard. So it
yeah,
definitely is a very important factor. Like cash flow, you need to be really on top of your cash flow. And, it's a lot different that way, especially if you're used to being a pay on demand junk removal company and you're not used to running a company like that in terms of always having money moving a lot. Very important to keep track of because, you can be profitable on paper, but if your cash flow is messed up, then, that's how companies can go bankrupt.
Yeah, yeah, and again, we don't say it to scare you. It's just we want to put the good and the bad. I think the
Yeah.
good way outweighs the bad in this scenario. And
Yeah.
some of the bad that we mentioned, there's a way to protect yourself. Like you mentioned your experience and what you did in this situation. You'd be able to sort of help someone prepare themselves for this. So I'll kind of lean that back into we'll wrap up with this. I think what you're putting together is really important. I'm already seeing guys. We've already sent some emails to like our customer list and told them about like transitions from junk to demo.
Yeah.
Who's interested in that, and I think there's definitely some interest. And like you said, I think it's just the unknowns need to be covered before they get there. So I think you're doing a good job of covering those unknowns. Talk a little bit about what you're putting together, which can protect them from some of the things that we just talked about, as well as prepare them for some of the great things that
Yeah.
they can get out of demo. Talk a little bit about what you're currently putting together and what you've put together so far.
Yeah. So, what we're looking to do, honestly, and the only reason for this is, again, I mentioned this briefly a little bit ago, but I haven't found, you know, too much information, like information that I've genuinely been like, I'm about to price this job, like, what do I do, type of thing. And it's like, go on YouTube and try to ask like how to price out an in-ground pool fill in and see what comes up. There's nothing on there. So, so like, and that's the case with a lot of these. So, with that, we've just been working on putting together, some type of, I don't want to call it a course, but more or less, we're working on a cohort that we're going to be having more or less in the winter, easy, like 60 days. And we're just going to help people, you know, who are interested in getting into this, basically learn everything you need to know in terms of the back end and then be able to kind of help you get kicked off if you want to go into this. And of course, before all that, we're going to be putting a lot more content out. I really, really want to stress like the good and the bad about it to make sure people understand because I know it's super easy to see like the money side of things and want to jump on it, like you mentioned.
Yep.
So I want to make sure like it's not going to be something where anyone can just sign up. Like every person that would be in it would have to talk to us first. And like genuinely, I would make sure it's a good fit because if someone, comes in and they just started junk removal a year ago and so, like there's a good chance it's not going to be a good fit for someone in that situation. It might be a good fit for them the next year or 2 years later or whatever, but I'd probably tell that person just keep doing what you're doing, try to build up experience where you can. And then I think there's other operators out there that just like us, it could honestly like pretty much change the trajectory of their company. Like for people who really want to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's the reason I have you on here, and I'll be very transparent in telling guys like I don't have people on here to sell a course. So I mean, you guys should already know who I usually have on here. Like, you're not trying to get rich quick by selling some course or some program. You don't need to. You have a successful
Yeah.
business. This is filling a need, I think, in a community. And by the way, guys, some of you probably already know Nick from watching. If you don't, there's a lot of guys who already reach out to Nick about this. So I think
Yeah.
that just led into him saying, you know what, there's a huge need for this. Let's put something together that can really help people, and I don't even know if you have a price on it yet, but I promise you, whatever it is, it's worth what you're putting your time into taking away from what you already have in your business. And I
Yeah.
also believe, and why I have you on here, is whatever that cost will be transferred in what they learn and understand in building the demo side because there's one, so much money in it, but two, just the things we touched on today, them underbidding on a job, learning how to bid a job, whatever your cost is, I can almost promise, just knowing what I know about demo, that just protecting them alone would be worth the investment, not just,
Uh,
everything else. And that's
yeah.
why I believe in it. And I know you're coming in the right place, or I wouldn't have you on here. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, to be genuinely honest with you, Rich and I, who would be doing it together, have talked multiple times about how like we almost don't even want to do it from a time perspective,
yeah,
but we almost feel like we have to because we've had like I probably have close to 50. local junk removal contacts in my phone. And like, if anyone
Mhm.
is watching this that is, just drop a comment because I really do talk to so many people, like multiple a week. I never charge anything or anything to anyone, and it's just got to the point where they're even like we're kind of already just naturally have been doing it for nothing for a long
Mhm.
time. Like I just got off the phone last week with someone. I completely helped him price his first in-ground pool out from start to finish. Basically, like this is what you need. This is the size machine you're going to need. Make sure you do this first. Get all the shut-off letters from everything. So like I'm already doing it. It's more or less just at this point. I think it makes more sense for those people that were helping now and anyone else who's interested to have a little bit more of like a frame structure rather than just
Perfect.
like hitting me up at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday like can you give me a call, and I'm always like definitely happy to do that, but I honestly think they'd get more help if we did it in more of that type of fashion.
Yeah, something they can refer back to, right? It has those
Yeah,
questions, and you guys, with already limited time and running a business aren't getting pulled in a direction as much. They have set times that they could probably get things answered, things of that nature. Um,
yeah,
so, you mentioned the cohorts. We're looking at probably your timeline, and this isn't set, guys. I know, Dick, you're still kind of putting this together, but you were saying probably about mid-fall, winterish for the cohorts, and for
yeah,
the build up to that, for guys who are interested now or kind of want to learn more about it, they could just pretty much set up with you like a waiting list or whatnot. What's kind of the
yeah,
layout there? What would you like for them to do, kind of building up to that to get ready for it?
yeah. What we'll do is we're gonna have a waiting list link set up rather soon. In the meantime, I can send over to you if you don't mind. You can maybe just have up my social media handles, probably the easiest, or like Facebook or anything on there, just to reach out. And if you are like really eager to do this or just get into this space or even just learn more about it for like years in the future, feel free to reach out even now. Like if it's beforehand, it's not a problem. I'll talk to you whatever you want to do and just see if it's like makes sense. But yeah, it's gonna end up being we're thinking October 1st to and then 2 months from there. So I guess to December 1st, and then possibly run another one because these are going to be limited too. Only like maybe 15, 20 people max. I want to make sure the people that are in there are like actually getting what they need, and also
Yeah.
make sure that it's the right people because it's again it's one of those things where I feel like it can go both ways. Like for the right person, I think your ROI is off the charts. For the wrong person, I think you might just be giving yourself a bigger headache than what you're dealing with. So I think it's really important, at least on our end, to like do our due diligence with whoever's interested, and not it's not going to be something anyone can just go sign up and click a button and sign up. We're going to have a process to make sure that makes sense.
Yeah, I respect that. I think it's the right way to go about it. So we'll wrap up with that, man. I'll have your info in the description. I think this is really helpful for a lot of guys who are kind of on the fence with this or really want to learn about it, to have a resource to actually do it. I know there's just not, like you said, not a lot of resources out there for this. Not the
Mm-hmm.
same way for junk removal, right? You can learn how to do junk removal pretty quickly on
Oh
YouTube.
yeah.
Demolition, you don't see as much. So I think this really fills a need, as you've already seen with the questions that you get on a daily basis. But really appreciate you hopping on here, man. I'll put all your info in there for those that are interested in this as this comes up and you build upon it. Is there any final words that you want to add to wrap up for today?
I would just say for anyone who's looking for, I guess a little bit more of a, I don't know what the right word is. I guess not a change to their company, but for someone who wants to really get out there and try to build something a little bit, larger and just like, I don't know how to exactly describe what I'm trying to say here, but
If if you don't mind, I'll try and help. I think what you're
yeah,
going for is, correct me if I'm wrong. When it comes to junk removal and knowing this industry so well, a large junk removal is 3 to 5 million. That's a
yeah,
large junk removal company. A demolition company, a small demolition company is 3 to 5 million.
yeah, that's,
So,
yeah, in
so
a nutshell.
yeah,
And that, and I guess this is also like, we've had the ideas of like, multiple junk removal locations because typically how you scale in junk removal is
yeah,
to expand your geography. And we've decided Like we've made the decision now for sure that other than maybe like a small satellite still in Jersey type of thing, we are just going to try to build one large operation in our local area. And the only way I believe that's possible to do that is if you don't scale geography, you need to scale service. And, hoarding and demolition both, they're already within our services of junk removal. You know what I mean? Just at a smaller scale. So like junk removal company, you're already doing a shed, you would probably do a garage, you'd probably do a mobile home. So why not move up and knock down a house or a double wide mobile home? And same
Yeah.
with the hoarding. You're already doing a clean out. You already do this. So why not target and go after the largest of the clean outs? So,
Yeah. So I would agree. I think this is the best way to, some guys could be super thrilled with 3 to 5 million. I'm not saying that that's very good, but
oh
if you're
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
break through a certain ceiling locally, this is the best way to do it. Other than franchising, going multi-location. If you're that guy
exactly.
who's looking to do that, I think this is the way you do that. And I think that's kind of how you were trying to say
Yeah.
it. And I wholeheartedly agree with you from everything that I've seen, and I've seen a lot from both. So. Um, we didn't even touch on hoarding, but I
Yeah.
guess that's another video.
Yeah. That could be
Because
another
I know
video.
you're good with that too. So we'll have to put that together in upcoming months, maybe a little bit closer to you piecing this together. We'll get you back on. But man, I really appreciate you taking the time to hop in here, dropping some gems, helping people understand what this is about. Because I think there's going to be some people definitely hitting you up who have some interest, who are looking to scale their business a little bit in their same local area.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.